From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. underscored the need for clear rules and shared responsibility between government and the private sector as he led the turnover of the Caliraya-Botocan-Kalayaan or CBK hydroelectric power plants to a private consortium on Monday. The President said strong public-private partnerships are essential to keeping vital services like electricity reliable, affordable, and responsive to the public. President Marcos emphasized that collaboration must always protect public interest while upholding transparency and accountability. The CBK complex, one of Luzon's biggest hydropower systems, delivers 797 megawatts of combined capacity. Its three plants serve distinct functions. Caliraya stores water, Botocan generates power from river flow, and Kalayaan stabilizes supply during peak demand. The President said the system is crucial to maintaining grid stability as the country expands its renewable energy use. President Marcos noted that the privatization raised more than 36.27 billion pesos for the government, funds that can be redirected to classrooms, roads, hospitals, and other basic services. The new operator, the Thunder Consortium, composed of Aboitiz Renewables Incorporated, Sumitomo Corporation, and J-Power, brings extensive experience in managing power facilities locally and abroad. President Marcos said the turnover reflects investor confidence in the country's energy policies and its approach to public-private partnerships. The chief executive added that strategic collaboration between government and industry turns infrastructure investments into dependable services that people can rely on every day.
With this privatization completed through the successful bid of over 36.27 billion pesos, the government is able to unlock significant resources while ensuring the continued operation of a strategically important energy asset. In doing so, the government can invest where it matters most, in our people. Particularly, these resources can be directed towards the immediate needs of the public, such as for classrooms, for roads, and for hospitals. And as we continue to diversify our energy sources, facilities like CBK help support renewable energy integration into the grid. During off-peak hours, excess power is used to pump water to an upper reservoir. When the demand is high, the water is released to generate electricity, allowing cleaner energy to work reliable at scale. Together, they form a system designed not just to generate power, but to balance the supply and demand across the entire power system. This is made possible through the Kalayaan Pump Storage Facility, which supports grid stability. This is why we in government continue to strengthen the systems in our energy sector by improving policies, processes, and partnerships to ensure that energy reliability and affordability are sustained in the long term. Building on the strength of both the public and private sectors, we encourage collaborations that safeguard the public interest while promoting transparency and accountability.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. casted the 80th anniversary of Philippine-United States diplomatic relations as a moment to reaffirm and expand a partnership he described as vital to national and regional security. At the palace launch of the official anniversary logo, the president pointed to 8 decades of cooperation spanning defense, maritime security, law enforcement, trade, investment, agriculture, energy, transport, labor, health, education, disaster response, tourism, and culture. He said the breadth of that cooperation reflects sustained commitment from both sides. President Marcos noted that the alliance is now moving into newer strategic arenas, including cybersecurity and outer space, supported by continued high-level engagement such as his recent meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. The chief executive said that exchange renewed momentum for deeper coordination and reinforced the foundations of the alliance. The anniversary logo, created jointly by the Philippine Embassy in Washington and the U.S. Embassy in Manila, incorporates the Philippine 8-rayed sun and the American stars and stripes to symbolize shared values built over 8 decades. President Marcos Jr. also recognized the U.S.-Philippine Society and Philippine Ambassador to Washington, Jose Manuel Romualdez, for their roles in strengthening ties, calling Romualdez instrumental in nurturing the relationship. As this year's Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN chair, President Marcos said the Philippines looks forward to continued U.S. support for regional initiatives and expressed hope that Trump will visit Manila for the ASEAN summit later this year.
Any enduring relationship requires commitment and sustained effort, and we have certainly done the needed work. Today, that cooperation is broad and it is comprehensive in the areas of defense, maritime security, law enforcement, trade, investment, agriculture, energy, transport, labor, health, education, disaster response, tourism, and culture, addressing domestic, regional, and international challenges. And I am sure because of the depth and breadth of our relationship, I still have missed some sectors. More importantly, we seize opportunities through bilateral, multilateral, and multilateral channels, while expanding our partnership into new frontiers such as cyber and outer space. This anniversary logo was developed to capture and symbolize the 8 decades of this enduring friendship. Last year, I had the privilege and honor of being the first and the only leader, as far as we know, from an ASEAN country so far to be invited to the White House by U.S. President Donald Trump during his second term. Our positive initial engagement provided renewed momentum for sustained high-level exchanges, and more importantly, it reaffirmed the foundational groundwork that continues to strengthen our alliance. We would also like to take this opportunity to show our appreciation and gratitude to our Philippine ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Babe Romualdez, who happens to be the third Romualdez to be ambassador of the Philippines to the United States. For 8 years now, nearly 1/10 of our diplomatic history, he has served as the face of the Philippines in the United States. If there is anyone who can be credited with nurturing and strengthening our ties in recent years, it is Ambassador Babe. Thank you, Babe, for your work.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Monday announced that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will travel to New York from March 8th to the 11th for a working visit focused on high-level engagements at the United Nations. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the President will attend the opening of the 70th session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women, the organization's primary body for advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. President Marcos is also set to deliver remarks before a special session of the UN General Assembly, highlighting the Philippines' commitment to multilateral cooperation. Castro said the chief executive will meet with UN officials during the trip to reinforce partnerships on global and development issues. The Philippines was re-elected in 2024 to the UNCSW for the 2025 to 2029 term following its successful chairship of the Commission's 68th session.
Pangungunahan ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. ang isang working visit sa New York, USA sa darating na March 8 to 11. Dadalo si Pangulong Marcos Jr. sa opening ng 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. Magbibigay din ang Pangulo ng mensahe sa gaganaping special session ng General Assembly ng United Nations. Makikipagpulong din ang Pangulo sa ilang opisyal ng UN.
Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Malacañang underscored the need for consistency and responsibility in public statements on the West Philippine Sea or WPS, reaffirming Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s firm stance that no part of Philippine territory or national interest will ever be surrendered. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said, lawmakers are free to debate and express their views, but the President expects all Filipinos, especially public officials, to speak clearly and consistently about the country's rights in the WPS. Castro's remarks followed renewed Senate discussions on the issue after Senator Rodante Marcoleta drew criticism for comments interpreted as suggesting the surrender of the Kalayaan Island Group or KIG. Kalayaan, located in the WPS, is the country's lone municipality in the area and home to Pag-asa Island, the Philippines' most developed outpost in the disputed waters. Castro stressed that the President's position has not changed. No territory and no national interest will be yielded to any foreign power. She said Senate debates fall within legislators' duties, but cautioned that careless or conflicting statements on sensitive national issues can have serious consequences. As she put it, those who sow confusion may end up reaping turmoil.
Una-una, kung ano man po ang pagdidibatihan sa Senado, ginagampanan lang nila ang kanilang tungkulin. At meron po tayong sinasabi na freedom of expression. Pero ang nais din po ng Pangulo, maipahatid ninuman ng bawat Pilipino kung ano ba ang ating karapatan sa ating teritoryo, kung ano ba ang interest natin sa West Philippine Sea. Ganun pa rin po ang posisyon ng Pangulo. Wala pong anumang bahagi ng teritoryo natin o anumang interes ang iso-surrender sa anumang foreign power. Pero dapat din po tayo maging tugma sa ating ipinapahayag. May kasabihan nga tayo, ang magtanim ng hangin, bagyo ang aanihin.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said Monday that the accomplishment report submitted by the Independent Commission for Infrastructure or ICI is now under review as President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. weighs the panel's next steps. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro confirmed the report has been forwarded to the Office of the Executive Secretary or OES and is currently being studied. She did not say whether the president has personally read the document or if there has been follow-up communication with ICI Chair Andres Reyes Jr. since the report was filed on February 6th. The 125-day report, covering September 15, 2025 to January 18, 2026, detailed what the Commission described as substantial and measurable results despite limited manpower and resources. The ICI filed 9 referrals with the Office of the Ombudsman involving 65 individuals and coordinated referrals for 66 more with the Department of Justice for possible immigration lookout bulletin orders. The Commission also held 32 hearings with 36 witnesses, including 25 high-profile personalities, 7 senators, 13 House members, and 5 agency heads. It conducted 16 site inspections nationwide, processed 1,173 documents, and issued 160 investigative communications such as subpoenas. Based on Anti-Money Laundering Council reports, the ICI said its work contributed to the freezing of 6,692 bank accounts and the preservation or seizure of assets worth an estimated 24.7 billion pesos, including vehicles, real estate, aircraft, insurance policies, and electronic wallet accounts. President Marcos created the Commission through Executive Order Number 94 in September 2025 to investigate alleged corruption and fund misuse in flood control projects. The palace earlier said the president will decide on the ICI's future, including potential new appointments, after completing his review of the report.
Sa ngayon po ay naibigay na po sa Office of the Executive Secretary at sa ngayon po ay aaralin pa po. Wala pong naipabigay sa atin na anumang update patungkol po dyan, maliban lamang po na naisumite ang report sa OES.
Brushed aside online criticisms targeting Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco and Health Secretary Teodoro Herbosa, saying both officials continue to enjoy the full trust and confidence of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said there has been no discussion between the President and the 2 cabinet members regarding supposed public dissatisfaction circulating on social media, stressing that such claims are speculative. She added that Frasco and Herbosa remain in good standing with the chief executive and continue to carry out their duties with his confidence. Frasco has recently faced online criticism over perceived self-promotion and questions about tourism campaign priorities, while Herbosa has been the subject of social media scrutiny tied to broader concerns about the health sector.
Wala pong anumang pag-uusap patungkol po sa mga sinasabing mga dissatisfaction na binabanggit po sa social media, sa online, at yan lamang po ay puro espekulasyon. So ngayon po, ang dalawa pong kabinete, CABSEC, ay nag-i-enjoy pa rin po sila ng pagtitiwala ng Pangulo. Okay. Hindi lamang po sa kanila, sa lahat po ng kabinete. Pagbutihan ang trabaho, umiwas sa issue ng korupsyon, at pagandihin nila ang interes ng bawat Pilipino sa ating bansa.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
The House Committee on Justice voted 39-4 on Monday to approve a committee report dismissing 2 impeachment complaints against President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., ruling both as insufficient in substance. Committee Chair Batangas Representative Gerville Luistro said the panel stood firm that the complaints filed by De Jesus and Maza and their groups failed to meet the required threshold. prompting the committee to adopt their dismissal. She stressed, however, that the move still needs the approval of the full House once the signed report is transmitted and placed on the order of business. A one-third vote of all House members is required to affirm or overturn the committee's action. Cagayan de Oro Representative Rufus Rodriguez, who voted to adopt the report, said the testimony of former Department of Public Works and Highways or DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo did not establish any direct link between the President and allegations of insertions or kickbacks in the 2025 flood control budget. He added that video statements attributed to former Representative Zaldi Cole could not be treated as corroborating evidence because they were not notarized and were recorded outside the country. The committee's approval sends the dismissal to the plenary for final action.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, or CFO, is calling for an evidence-based review of the country's succession and property laws to better protect the inheritance rights of Filipinos living abroad. In a statement, the CFO said Secretary Dante Clinkang II raised the need for a comprehensive study during a meeting with Filipino-American lawyer and retired U.S. Navy officer Sylvester Lee Salcedo, who highlighted the growing number of legal disputes faced by overseas Filipinos trying to assert claims over family properties in the Philippines. Ang said strengthening inheritance protections is central to the CFO's mandate of preserving the political, cultural, and economic ties of the Filipino diaspora to the homeland. He warned that unresolved property issues erode migrants' long-term economic stake in the country. He stressed the need for a research-driven review to pinpoint gaps in current laws and identify policy reforms that will safeguard the rights of Filipinos abroad. Salcedo noted that many overseas Filipinos struggle to navigate the Philippine legal system from afar, often resulting in the loss of family assets. He said these challenges discourage migrants from maintaining economic and emotional connections to the Philippines. Drawing from his U.S. legal experience, he pushed for a systematic framework, possibly new legislation to streamline inheritance processes for Filipinos overseas. The CFO said clear property rights would encourage the diaspora to continue investing in their hometowns. The initiative also aligns with the agency's advocacy for overseas Filipino retirees, many of whom rely on inherited property as the foundation of their retirement plans in the Philippines. With an estimated 10.7 million Filipinos abroad, more than half of whom are permanent or long-term migrants, the CFO said its Policy, Planning, and Research Division will lead consultations with legal experts and diaspora leaders to craft recommendations for the executive and legislative branches. By prioritizing a research-based approach, the CFO aims to turn long-standing inheritance challenges into an opportunity to strengthen the connection between global Filipinos and the Philippine homeland, ensuring their property rights are protected across generations.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Philippine Air Force, or PAF, said the recently concluded air drills with the United States over Luzon were long-planned training activities and not intended to provoke any country. PAF spokesperson Colonel Maria Cristina Basco said the exercises were part of scheduled interoperability training with the U.S. Pacific Air Forces and had been coordinated well in advance. She stressed the activities should not be interpreted as a response to or provocation against China. Bosco said all participating aircraft operated strictly within Philippine territory and complied with all legal and coordination requirements. The PAF earlier announced that Filipino and American aircraft conducted a series of exercises from February 2 to 6 across multiple locations in Luzon to strengthen cooperation and joint operational capability. Units from the PAF and PACAF carried out a bilateral bomber air patrol and live drop drills from Colonel Ernesto Rabina Air Base in Tarlac and over the West Philippine Sea via the Luzon Strait, with support from U.S. Special Operations Command Pacific and Marine Corps Forces Pacific. The first activity on February 2nd involved a live drop exercise featuring 2 PAF FA-50PH fighters and 2 U.S. B-52 bombers. This was followed on February 4th by an air defense scenario over the West Philippine Sea focused on airspace coordination, command and control integration, and joint response. The drills concluded on February 6 with a joint bomber air patrol over the West Philippine Sea and Luzon Strait, highlighting combined mission planning, airspace coordination, and operational readiness. Bosco said the exercises enhanced interoperability, strengthened strategic cooperation, and improved readiness through realistic joint training.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.